The whispers came first. Soft, meaningless sounds that drifted through the grocery store air, floating over the hum of refrigerators and the rustle of paper bags. 8-year-old Lily Bennett stood in the cereal aisle, watching an elderly woman mutter under her breath in Mandarin. And somehow, she understood every word. Complaints about the price of milk, frustration at her aching knees, the casual annoyance of daily life. All of it landed perfectly clear in Lily's mind. It should have been impossible, yet it felt naturel, like a song she already knew by heart. When she told her mother that night, Claire smiled absently, assuming her daughter had picked up a few phrases from YouTube. But when Lily began repeating entire sentences in perfect pronunciation, Claire's tired smile faltered. "Sweetheart, that's strange," she said softly, brushing hair from the little girl's forehead. "Did someone teach you that?" Lily shook her head. "It just happens. Mum, I hear people talk, and suddenly, I know what they're saying." Claire didn't push it. Life was already heavy enough. Late rent, mounting bills, and the endless ache of working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. She told herself it was imagination, a trick of coincidence. But deep down, something uneasy stirred. 2 nights later, New York shimmered with winter lights. Snow clung to the sidewalks outside the prestigious Helmsworth Charity Gala, where Claire hurried through the back entrance in her catering uniform black vest, bow tie, aching feet already protesting another 10-hour shift. She hadn't planned to bring Lily. The babysitter had cancelled last minute. And the thought of losing a triple pay shift wasn't an option. So she brought coloring books, snacks, and the same exhausted hope that her daughter could stay quiet in the kitchen corner. "Remember," Claire whispered, keeling down, "you color, you read, and you stay right here. No wandering." "Okay," Lily nodded solemnly. Clutching her crayons like sacred treasure, the kitchen buzzed with movement chefs barking orders, servers balancing trays of champagne flutes, the metallic rhythm of cutlery and tension. Somewhere beyond the swinging doors, violins played and laughter rippled through crystal glasses. From her little corner, Lily watched everything. She liked watching the stories people told without words. The pastry chef's nervous tapping, the head waiter's silent pride, her mother's quiet strength. Even when she thought no one saw, an hour passed. Claire moved like clockwork, serving, smiling, fading into invisibility. Every tray she carried felt like another promise that she could keep them both alive for 1 more month. Through the half-open door, Lily could see a slice of the grand ballroom chandeliers, like frozen fireworks, gowns swirling under gold light. And at the center table, a man whose presence drew every glance. Without trying, Alexander Morwetzi. His name floated through the staff, whispers, like a secret spell. Billionaire. Investor. Untouchable. The kind of man people feared and admired in the same breath. To Lily, he looked lonely. He smiled at no one, spoke only when necessary, and seemed bored by the glittering world spinning around him. Beneath the tablecloth, Lily's crayons rolled to the floor. She crawled after them, giggling quietly. But when she reached the ballroom threshold, something caught her ear. 2 men she hadn't seen before stepped through a side door, dressed as waiters, but moving differently, too stiff, too careful. They pushed a cart, carrying a single bottle wrapped in silver cloth. Lily froze. They began whispering in a language she didn't know. The sounds flowed like music foreign, rhythmic, fast. Italian. Maybe, then, like a curtain lifting. The meaning flooded her mind. Once he drinks this, it's over. The empire changes hands by morning. Herr Hatzstudel. They were talking about Alexander Moretti. She peeked through the white linen folds and saw one man pour the sparkling liquid into a single glass, the one meant for him. The world seemed to narrow around her heartbeat. Lily's small legs moved before her mind caught up. She scrambled from beneath the table and ran across the shining marble floor, her shoes tapping like drumbeats in the stunned silence of the crowd. "Don't drink that," she screamed, her voice slicing through the music. Hundreds of eyes turned. At the center table, Alexander Moretti's glass was inches from his lips. He paused, brows narrowing as the little girl skidded to a stop beside him. Cheeks flushed, eyes wide with terror. "They said," she gasped, pointing at the waiters. "They said you'd die if you drank it." Gasps erupted. The two imposters exchanged a single look before bolting toward the side exit. Security moved instantly, intercepting them as the room dissolved into chaos. Claire burst in from the kitchen, her tray crashing to the floor. "Lily," she cried, pushing through the crowd, her heart splitting between fury and fear. She dropped to her knees beside her daughter, pulling her close. "What are you doing?" "She saved me." A calm, male voice interrupted. Claire looked up and met the cold, unreadable gaze of Alexander Moretti. Up close, he was more intimidating than the rumors suggested. Tall, deliberate, every movement precise. But in that moment, there was something else in his eyes. Calculation. And something almost human underneath. He looked from Claire to Lily, then to the glass, still trembling on the table. "Test it," he ordered quietly. A man in a dark suit produced a chemical strip, dipped it into the liquid, and it turned a violent shade of purple. Poison. A ripple of horror swept through the crowd. Minutes blurred into sirens, flashing lights, and police statements. The would-be assassins were dragged away, shouting in a language Claire didn't recognize, but Lily did. "They're saying they failed their boss," she whispered, "and that the Russians will take over now." Claire's blood ran cold. "How do you know that?" "I just do." Alexander turned sharply. She understood that. Claire swallowed hard. She has this thing. She hears people speak, and she hesitated. Afraid of sounding insane, she understands them. Any language. The billionaire studied them in silence, the weight of his gaze heavy enough to bend air. For a long moment, he said nothing, then dismissed his security team with a nod. When the last officer left, he crouched down, meeting Lily's eyes. "You saved my life tonight," he said softly. "How did you know what they were saying?" "I just knew," she whispered. "It's like the words go inside my head and turn into English." Alexander's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Curiosity. Maybe even awe. "You're a remarkable child." He turned to Claire. "But this gift, it will make her a target." Claire straightened, instinctively protective. "She's just a little girl." He nodded slowly. "And yet, she changed the course of a war you didn't know existed." The ballroom was nearly empty now. Just scattered glasses and the echo of chaos. Outside, red and blue lights painted the night in warning colors. Claire gathered her coat, gripping Lily's hand so tightly. It hurt. "We're leaving," she said firmly. Alexander's voice followed them, calm and absolute. "If you walk out that door, you won't make it home." She turned, startled by the certainty in his tone. "The men who tried to kill me tonight don't leave witnesses," he continued. "Especially not witnesses who can understand them in any language." Claire's throat tightened. "Are you threatening me?" "No," he said quietly. "I'm offering protection." Something in his voice, that strange mix of control and sincerity, made her hesitate. He handed her a small black card. "No name. No number. Just an embossed crest M. If anything feels wrong," he said, "call the number on the back. My people will find you before anyone else does." Then he turned away, speaking to his guards in low Italian words. Lily understood perfectly. They'll come for her first. Make sure she's watched. Lily tugged her mother's sleeve. He's telling them to protect us. Claire froze. How do you know that? Lily just shrugged, eyes wide with innocence. Because he said it. That night. The city never seemed so loud. Sirens bled into the wind. Claire drove home gripping the wheel, replaying the evening again and again. The poison. The screams. The billionaire's eyes. In the rearview mirror, Lily stared out the window. Quiet now. Her small face reflected in streaks of rain. Mom, she whispered. Are we in trouble? Claire hesitated. I don't know. Baby. She parked in front of their tiny apartment building, but something was wrong. The front door, Oliver's yammet halfway, hung slightly open. A thin slip of paper fluttered against the floor. Claire picked it up. A message. Scrawled in sharp Russian letters. She couldn't read, but Lily could. It says, the girl murmured. We know about the girl. The words landed like a thunderclap. Claire's pulse roared in her ears. She didn't know who they were, but she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't protect Lily alone. As she stared down at the note, Alexander Moretti's black card burned like a brand in her coat pocket. Outside, somewhere in the sleepless sprawl of New York, the man whose life her daughter had saved was already in motion, and whether she liked it or not, their worlds were now bound together. That was the night everything changed. The night an overworked mother, a gifted child, and a man built from secrets collided in a single breath of fate, setting off a chain of choices that none of them could ever undo. And though Claire couldn't know it yet, the moment her daughter spoke those impossible words, don't drink, that she hadn't just saved a man, she'd rewritten all of their lives. The city didn't sleep that night. Neither did Claire. The note lay on the kitchen counter, its Russian scrawl burning in her mind. We know about the girl. The refrigerator hummed softly. The only sound in the apartment, outside. Snow fell against the streetlights, gentle and cruel all at once. Claire packed a single bag. Before she even realized, she decided to go. She told herself it was temporary, just until things calmed down. But a mother's instinct doesn't wait for logic. It listens to danger in its purest form. At dawn, a black SUV waited downstairs. She didn't remember calling the number on the card. Maybe she hadn't needed to. Maybe they already knew. Lily pressed close to her side, wide-eyed as they drove through the silent city. And when the elevator doors opened into Alexander Moretti's penthouse, the world changed again. It was less an apartment than a fortress wrapped in glass and steel. Floor-to-ceiling windows glowed against the morning skyline. Security monitors lined the hallway. Every surface looked expensive enough to buy their entire neighborhood 10 times over. Claire felt small there, smaller than she'd felt in years. But fear has a strange way of making gratitude feel like guilt. He'd saved them, or trapped them. She wasn't sure which yet. Alexander met them in the main room, dressed in a dark suit, though it was barely 7 a.m. He looked as if he hadn't slept either. But his voice was calm, composed, the kind of calm that came from being obeyed. You're safe here, he said simply. Claire crossed her arms. Safe isn't the word I'd use when someone has to guard us to the bathroom. His lips curved slightly. Safety rarely feels comfortable. Lily wandered to the tall windows, pressing her palms to the glass. We're so high, she whispered, watching the city move far below. It looks like the world is tiny. Alexander's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. Sometimes it helps to see things from above, he said. Claire caught the quiet double meaning, though she pretended not to. Over the next few days, life settled into a strange, uneasy rhythm. Guards rotated discreetly through the halls. Meals appeared like clockwork. And every time Claire thought about leaving, she remembered the note. And the way Alexander had said, "If you walk out that door, you won't make it home." She hated that he was probably right. Lily adjusted faster. Children always do. She spent hours exploring the library, asking questions no adult could answer. But one afternoon, Claire found her sitting cross-legged on the floor, reciting something softly under her breath. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language Claire recognized. "Sweetheart," she said, gently. "What are you saying?" Lily smiled. "It's Sicilian. I heard Mr. Moretti talking on the phone last night." Claire blinked. "You understand him now?" "I think so," Lily said. "But he talks funny, like books, not like TV." Claire's heart sunk. The last thing she needed was for her daughter to mimic a crime lord's accent. "Maybe don't repeat his words." "Okay," Lily frowned. Why he sounds sad when he talks in that language? That gave Claire pause. Sad. She hadn't thought the man capable of something so human. That evening, after Lily went to bed, Claire found Alexander alone in his office. The skyline flickering behind him. Papers, maps, and photographs littered his desk, evidence of a life run by power and precision. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Without looking up, "I live here now." "Apparently," she replied. "Seems fair. I should know who's protecting us." His eyes lifted then, dark and sharp. "You think I'm the danger?" "I think danger follows you like perfume," she said quietly. "And you don't even smell it anymore." For a long moment, the air between them held nothing but silence. Then, to her surprise, he leaned back, almost amused. "You're not wrong." Claire didn't smile. "You could change it. You know. You have enough money to build the world, instead of control it." His laughter was low, bitter. "You think I wanted this life? My father built it. My grandfather before him. You don't just walk away from something like that. You inherit it like a curse. So break the curse," she said simply. He looked at her then, not like she was a servant, not like a problem to be solved, but like someone who had just said the one thing he'd never let himself believe. Later that night, he poured 2 cups of coffee and joined her in the quiet living room. The snow outside blurred the city lights into silver fog. "I killed my first man when I was 22, he said suddenly, as if continuing a conversation they hadn't started. "My father said it would make me strong. All it made me was numb." Claire said nothing. Sometimes silence is the only kindness left to give. He stared into the dark coffee. "Do you believe people can change?" Claire Bennett. She met his eyes. Steady. "Only if they want something worth changing for." He didn't answer, but his jaw tightened, as if that truth hurt more than any confession. The next morning, Alexander's personal physician examined Lily more out of curiosity than concern. After he left, he muttered to Alexander that her gift defied cognitive explanation. She wasn't learning. She was receiving. It was something beyond human understanding. When the door closed, Claire exhaled shakily. "We're not staying long," she said. "I can't have her treated like a science project." "She's not," Alexander said. "But she's important. To me. She's everything." Claire snapped. For the first time. He looked uncertain. "And that's why you need me?" "No," she said firmly. "That's why you need her." He blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means you've forgotten what good looks like. And for some reason, she still sees it in you." Her voice softened. "Don't waste that." He didn't respond. But for the first time, he didn't try to argue either. Days blurred. Snow melted into rain. Rain turned to fog. Claire began to see glimpses of the man behind the myth, the way he lingered by the piano when Lily played, how he spoke softly to the housekeeper, how he stared out at the skyline, as if waiting for forgiveness that would never come. He wasn't gentle, but he wasn't cruel. He was lost. Then, one night, everything shifted. It started as a whisper barely audible through the walls. Lily was drawing quietly on the floor when her head tilted, her expression changing. "Mum," she whispered. "Someone's talking in Sicilian. Right now." Behind the kitchen, Claire's pulse spiked. "Sweetheart, are you sure? They're saying, 'Move now.'" Before the guards switch. Before Claire could react, Alexander appeared in the doorway, already pulling a small earpiece from his suit. What did she hear? She said Claire started. But Lily spoke first. "They're coming from the west hallway." He didn't hesitate. "Stay here." Gunfire erupted seconds later, distant but unmistakable. Claire grabbed Lily. Heart pounding. As heavy footsteps thundered through the hall, it was over almost as fast as it began, when Alexander returned. His hands were steady, but his eyes weren't. Two of them. They didn't make it past the kitchen. He looked down at Lily. "You saved us again." The girl shifted nervously. "They said something else before they came in." "What?" "That, if this didn't work, the boss would send more." His expression darkened. "Then it's only a matter of time." That night, the tension in the penthouse was electric. Security teams doubled. Phones buzzed. Doors locked automatically. But beneath all the chaos, something else had changed. Something quiet and unspoken. Alexander sat with Lily by the window, as the city lights flickered below. "Do you know what my grandfather used to call Sicily?" he asked softly. "The land of promises. Every man swore he'd keep them, and every man broke them." Lily smiled faintly. "Maybe you can be the first who doesn't." He chuckled under his breath. "You sound like your mother. She says people can change." Lily said, "You just have to stop being afraid to..." He looked out at the skyline. "And if I've built my life on fear, then you already know how to tear it down," she said simply. He said nothing after that. But later, Claire found him standing alone by the window. His reflection divided by city light half shadow, half gold. By morning, the attack was contained. The danger postponed. But not gone. Still. Something in the air felt different. Not safer. Just clearer. Claire made breakfast herself for once, refusing the staff. Lily laughed at something small and silly. And for a rare moment, it felt like normal life had wandered back in. If only for a breath. Alexander walked in quietly, still in yesterday's clothes. He looked tired. But there was a softness around his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Coffee?" she asked. He hesitated. "That depends. Is it poisoned?" She couldn't help smiling. "Guess you'll have to trust me." He took the cup. Their fingers brushed. For a second, just one, they both forgot the walls, the guards, the war outside. Then he said quietly, "You were right." "About what?" "There's more strength in mercy than in fear." Claire studied him, unsure what to say. But Lily's laughter broke through from the other room. And somehow, that was answer enough. That was the day Alexander Moretti stopped pretending he didn't care. And though he didn't know it yet, the woman and child under his roof weren't just guests or witnesses. They were the beginning of his redemption. The safe house had done its job. But the real protection wasn't made of locks or steel. It was made of something far stronger: truth, compassion, and a child's unshakable belief that even the darkest hearts can still find their way back to the light. The morning began like any other, quiet. Still, almost peaceful. Claire was making coffee while Lily hummed to herself. braiding her doll's hair by the window. For once, the world outside felt far away. And then the phone rang. It wasn't the usual tone. It was sharp, metallic. A stranger's voice, cold and deliberate. "Miss Bennet," it said. "Don't scream." The cup shattered in her hand. The voice continued, almost bored. "Your daughter is safe for now. She will remain that way if Mr. Moretti agrees to our terms. He knows what we want." The line went dead. For one terrible moment, the world tilted. The air vanished from her lungs. Then she ran. When Claire reached Alexander's penthouse office, she didn't knock. "They have her," she said, her voice raw, the words barely forming. "They took Lily." Alexander froze. The color drained from his face. For a heartbeat, the powerful man, the untouchable figure she'd come to know, was gone. What stood before her was just a man who'd failed to protect the one person who still believed in him, who he demanded. "Someone," he called. "Said you'd know." He didn't hesitate. "The Bratva," he muttered, almost to himself. "The last faction still standing. They want me back under their thumb." He slammed his fist against the desk, then forced himself still. "They'll contact again. They always do." When he looked at her, the mask was back, but the eyes behind it burned. "I'll bring her home," he said. "You mean, we'll bring her home?" Claire shot back. "Claire, no," she interrupted, voice shaking but steady. "She needs her mother's voice. Not your soldiers. I'm going." For a long moment, he just stared at her, torn between command and understanding. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Then we do this together." Hours blurred into strategy. Alexander's network mobilized, tracing phone signals, pulling traffic camera feeds, scanning the city's veins like a living organism. Claire barely breathed. Every second without Lily was a second she might never get back. And then, at last, a signal. An abandoned warehouse near the waterfront industrial. Isolated, the kind of place no one would hear a child scream. It was past midnight when they arrived. The air was thick with fog and river salt. Inside, Lily sat in a dimly lit room. Small and silent. Hands bound but eyes clear. The men around her spoke in a language she didn't recognize then. The meaning slid into her mind like light through water. They were waiting for a call. A confirmation that Alexander Moretti had given up his empire. If not, they'd make an example of his little prodigy. Lily closed her eyes and listened harder. Words carried through walls. Another room. Another voice. A plan, she whispered to herself. Barely audible. Hoping anyone would hear. "Mum." They're behind the north wall. In the darkness outside. Alexander froze. "What did you say?" Claire's eyes widened. "She's talking." They both leaned closer to the small receiver connected to his surveillance headset. The sound was faint, but clear. Lily's whisper threaded through static like a prayer. "There are 5 men. 1 near the door. 2 guarding the back. The others, waiting." Alexander's voice was barely a breath. "She's guiding us." Claire's heart swelled and broke all at once. "Then we move now?" The next minutes were chaos wrapped in silence. Quick, sharp decisions. Doors forced open. Shouts swallowed by gunfire. And then Lily's voice again. Terrified this time. "Behind you?" Alexander turned just in time. A single shot rang out, echoing through the warehouse, like the ending of something old and terrible. Then, silence. When the smoke cleared, Claire was already running past armed men. Past fear. Until she saw her daughter sitting in the corner. Tears streaking her cheeks. "Mom?" The sound nearly broke her. She fell to her knees, pulling Lily into her arms, whispering over and over, "You're safe. I've got you. You're safe." And then Alexander was there too, standing a few feet away, chest heaving, gun lowered, eyes wet with something he'd never let anyone see before. For once, he didn't try to hide it. Later, back at the penthouse, as the adrenaline faded, Lily curled up on the couch between them. Exhausted, but unharmed. She was incredible, Claire said softly, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. She saved us all over again. Alexander nodded, just like her mother. For a while, none of them spoke. The city outside glowed like a sleeping giant, indifferent and endless. Finally, Claire asked, "Who gave them her location? You said this place was untouchable." His jaw tightened. "Someone close." And then it hit him, the face of the man who'd stood beside him for years. The one he trusted most, his security chief, his friend. When the betrayal was confirmed, Alexander didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just dismissed every guard in silence, one by one, until the only people left in the penthouse were the three of them. That was the night he decided it was over. Not the war, the life. In the days that followed, Alexander began dismantling everything piece by piece. Quietly, ruthlessly. The network, the front companies, the accounts hidden behind walls of secrecy. He gave up the empire that had defined him for decades, turning its power inward, to build instead of destroy. Claire watched him sign the last document in silence. "That easy?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "It's never easy. But for the first time, it feels right." Mons Best. The news broke in headlines and whispers. Alexander Moretti testifies against organized crime. Some called it betrayal. Others called it justice. To Claire, it was neither. It was simply truth catching up. He walked into the courthouse alone, his name echoing through marble halls that had only ever seen his shadow. And when he walked out, he wasn't a king anymore. He was a man free from the throne that had nearly killed him. Claire's new life began in the sunlight of that choice. The Moretti Foundation opened its doors 6 months later, offering education and shelter for single mothers and children caught in poverty. Claire ran it with the same stubborn grace that had once carried her through endless double shifts. Lily thrived in school. Her gift remained a secret between the three of them. Something sacred. Not strange. She learned to treat it not as magic, but as empathy made audible. And Alexander, he became something the world never expected. Visible, public, transparent. He used his fortune to rebuild the same city his empire once controlled from the shadows. He wasn't perfect. Redemption rarely is. But he was trying every single day. 1 year later, the ballroom glittered once again. The same chandeliers, the same golden light. But this time, the night belonged to something purer. The Foundation's first anniversary gala. Claire stood near the stage, wearing a simple dress, her heart light, but full. Lily, now 9, darted through the crowd, charming every guest with a curiosity that seemed boundless. When Alexander took the stage, the room fell silent. He looked out over the crowd, not as a ruler, but as a man humbled by grace, redemption. He began. Isn't granted. It's chosen. Every single day, by the choices we make, the people we protect, and the love we decide we deserve. Applause filled the room. Long and genuine. Claire felt something warm bloom in her chest. Pride. Forgiveness. Maybe even love. Lily slipped her small hand into hers, smiling up at her. "He did it." "Mom," she whispered. "He really changed." Claire nodded. eyes glistening. Edith. Outside. The city lights burned bright against the night sky. The same skyline that once symbolized danger now shimmered with something softer hope. Later, when the guests were gone and the music had faded, Alexander found them on the balcony overlooking the city. "I never thanked you," he said quietly, "for what Claire asked, for believing I could be more than what I was." She smiled gently. "You didn't need me to believe it, Alexander. You just needed to see it." He looked down at Lily, now asleep in her mother's arms, her face peaceful against the rhythm of the city below. "You know," he said softly, "I used to think power meant control. Now I think it means protection. Claire met gaze. Then you finally have it." In the end, there were no grand endings. No perfect closures. Just people trying, learning, changing. The empire he built on fear was gone. The family he found through courage remained. And somewhere deep in the quiet heart of the city, a little girl with an impossible gift slept soundly, proof that sometimes the smallest voices can rewrite the loudest destinies. That was the price of redemption. And for once, it was worth every cost. And that's how one small act of courage changed 3 lives forever. If this story touched your heart, if you believe, like I do, that everyone deserves a second chance, don't forget to let me know. Leave a comment below and tell me what moment moved you the most. Or what you would have done if you were in Claire's place. Hit that like button if you want to see more stories about hope, strength, and redemption. And of course, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Every like, every share, every comment helps this community grow, a place where stories remind us that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way back to the light. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.